Stuart Little 2. Some would call it a cinematic masterpiece filled with nostalgia, or a piece of crap movie that was just a cash cow. Well, I for one argue it's both. Because when Stuart Little 2 came out, some advertising executives got together and said, we need to sell some merch for the new movie. But what are we going to sell? Well, we're going to sell toys to McDonald's, we're going to do this, that, and the other. And another thing we're going to sell is a Stuart Little 2 joke book. So, I did not buy this book. I think I've had it ever since I was a kid. Like, when the DVD of Stuart Little 2 first came out, I think I had this book. It's quite interesting. So what I'm going to do is read every single joke in this book, either until I laugh, or until I get all the way through. We'll see which comes first. So I would say this joke book has about an average of maybe 4 or 5 jokes in it. So out of a span of 40 pages, I would wager about 150 jokes total. So let's begin. Apparently I colored it in a little. Apparently loved coloring stuff. Come on. Freaking A. Little giggles. That's what the chapter starts off with. How did Stuart feel when George didn't want to play with him? Mouserable. Why is baby Martha so good at basketball? She's an expert dribbler. Why did George start dreaming about the sun? Because Stuart told him to rise and shine. Why is Mrs. Little like a telephone? They both have rings. How did Stuart feel about being rescued from the sink? He was completely drained. What is Stuart's favorite breakfast cereal? Mice Krispies. Mr. Little and Mrs. Little. Knock knock. Who's there? Cash. Cash who? No thanks, dear. I prefer peanuts. Why did George take his soccer award for a ride on his bicycle? Because someone told him to put the pedal to the metal. Metal. What kind of umbrella does Stuart carry when it's raining? A wet one. Mr. Little. Why does Martha keep spitting out her oatmeal? Mrs. Little. She's given us some feedback. What 2 things can you not have for breakfast? Lunch and dinner. How many babysitters does it take to change a light bulb? None. They don't make diapers that small. What has 1 foot and 4 legs? A bed. Will. Do Stuart and George like playing soccer? Coach. Yes, they get a real kick out of it. Chapter 2. Bird Brains. Margalo and Stuart. Knock knock. Who's there? Beats. Beats who? Beats me. Margalo. Why did the pigeon cross the road? Stuart. It was the chicken's day off. What bird is with you at every meal? The swallow. What does Margalo do on Halloween? She goes trick-or-tweeting. Margalo and Stuart again. Knock knock. Who's there? Boo. Boo-hoo. Don't cry, it's just a joke. What do you call a bird with no eye? A bird. Bird. Why don't birds like to discuss their feathers? It's a ticklish subject. Stuart. Why shouldn't you grab a falcon by his tail? Margalo. It may be his tail, but it will be your end. What holiday is strictly observed by all birds? Feathers Day. What steps would you take if falcon were after you? Fast ones. Sorry, that one was between Marklow and Stuart. How can you tell that birds like shopping at sales? They're always saying cheap, cheap. Stuart, which side of a bird has the most colorful feathers? Marklow, the outside. Okay. Planes, trains, and automobiles. Why did Stuart do his homework in his plane? He wanted to pursue a higher education. Marklow, when is a car not a car? Stuart, when it turns into a garage. Marklow and Stuart, knock knock, who's there? Cargo, cargo who? Cargo beep beep. What happened when Snowbell slept under the car? He got up oily the next morning. Oily. Stuart and Marklow. Stuart, knock knock, who's there? Luke. Luke who? Luke out, here comes Falcon. George and Stuart. George, what 10-letter word starts with G-A-S? Stuart, automobile. What happened when Stuart lost control of his plane? He got a crash course in landing. Stuart and Marklow. Knock knock, who's there? Darren. Darren who? Darren young man in my flying machine. Where does landing come before takeoff? In the dictionary. Stuart and Marklow. Knock knock, who's there? Lima bean. Lima bean who? Lima bean working on the railroad. Kitty capers. What is Snowbell's favorite TV show? The Nightly Muse. Why are cats such bad dancers? They have 2 left feet. How does Monty get rid of fleas? He starts from scratch. Snowbell and Monty. Snowbell, what kind of cat lives in the ocean? Monty, an octopus. An octopus. Octopus. How can you tell the difference between a can of cat food and a can of dog food? Read the labels. Snowbell and Monty. Knock knock, who's there? Howl. Howl who? Howl you know unless you open the door. What happened to the cat who swallowed a ball of wool? She had mittens. What's Snowbell's favorite color? Purple. Purple. Monty, how does a flea get where he's going? Hitchhiking. What kind of cats like to go bowling? Alley cats. Why did Snowbell want to visit a bakery? So he could loaf around all day. Apparently I colored that in. Oh, and also Stuart. I don't know if you saw that. What did the Martian say to the cat? Take me to your litter. George, why does Snowbell snore so much? Stuart, he's a sound sleeper. What's worse than raining cats and dogs? Hailing taxis. Monty and Snowbell. Knock knock, who's there? Butter. Butter who? Butter be careful when Falcon's around. How can you keep Monty from smelling? Hold his nose. Why did Snowbell follow the chicken across the road? Because he's a copycat. What's the difference between a cat and a flea? A cat can have fleas, but a flea can't have cats. Why didn't Snowbell believe he was getting tuna for dinner? It sounded too fishy. What is a kitten after it's 6 months old? 7 months old. What is Snowbell's favorite sport? Hairball. Snowbell and Stuart. Knock knock, who's there? Aesop. Aesop who? Aesop, I saw an angry falcon. Funny friends. Colored that in and that in blue. George and Will. Knock knock, who's there? Don Juan. Don Juan who? Don Juan to go to school today. Marklow, did you hear the one about the garbage barge? Stuart, yes, it's a load of rubbish. Will, hey George, what hand do you write with? George, neither. I usually use a pencil. Snowbell, my food tastes funny. Stuart, then why aren't you laughing? George, what has a bottom at the top? Will, I don't know. What? George, your legs. As you can see, I colored that in. Did you hear the one about the pencil? Stuart says. Margalo, yes, it was pointless. Will, what kind of table has no legs? George, a multiplication table. George, why did the jewelry thief take a shower? Will, he wanted to make a clean getaway. Before I go on, I just want to point out, it's amazing there are so many jokes in here about Will, because I've watched Stuart Little too, and I think Will only shows up for a total of 5 minutes in the movie. Just saying. Moving on. Stuart, what do you call an overeducated plumber? A drain surgeon. Will, why did the cross-eyed teacher lose her job? George, because she couldn't control her pupils. George, today my teacher yelled at me for something I didn't do. Stuart, what was that? George, my homework. Wah, wah. And as you can see, I colored that in. And I'm sure a lot of furries were born because of this. I wonder if I'll regret that joke and edit it out later. Probably not. Flying high. Stuart, did you hear the joke about the broken egg? Yes, it really cracked me up. Okay. What does a bird get when she's injured? Tweetment. How do birds stop themselves in mid-flight? They use air brakes. Why do birds lay eggs? If they drop them, they'd break. Why do birds watch the news? To get the feather forecast. Margalo, why did the chicken cross the playground? Stuart, to get to the other slide. Why do birds fly south for the winter? Because it's too far to walk. We're over halfway there, folks. Hang in there. Some birds were flying south for the winter. There was a bird in front of two birds, a bird behind two birds, and a bird between two birds. How many birds were there in all? 3 birds flying single file. Margalo, what kind of bird is always out of breath? Stuart, a puffin. Where can Falcon always find diamonds? In a deck of cards. Falcon, do you know your lines? Margalo, nope, I'll just wing it. What kind of test does a bird take? In school. An exam. Exam. What kind of birds are always unhappy? Bluebirds. How does Margalo stay so thin? She eats like a bird. Falcon and Margalo. Knock knock. Who's there? Alex. Alex who? Alex the questions here. Why did Margalo use hot rollers on her feathers? She heard that the curly bird gets the worm. Why do birds make good outfielders? They're good at catching flies. Falcon. Which weighs more, a pound of jewels or a pound of feathers? Margalo. Neither. They both weigh the same. 1 pound. That's not even a joke. That's just a fact. What's the strongest kind of bird in the world? A crane. Stuart. What flies when it's on and floats when it's off? Margalo. A feather. Falcon had 10 gold coins. All but 7 got lost. How many did he have left? 7. We're at the home stretch. New York Silly. As you can see, I colored that in. Stuart. Oh, by the way, what awesome coloring skills I have. Stuart, what wears shoes but has no feet? George, the sidewalk. For clarification, that was Stuart and George, unless I said that already. Mrs. Little, did you hear about the smog? Mr. Little, you don't have to tell me, it's all over town. What do cars in New York have for breakfast? Traffic jam. What did one taxi muffler say to the other taxi muffler? Boy, am I exhausted. George, why did the traffic light turn red? Stuart, you would too if you had to change in front of all those people. George, what building in New York has the most stories? Stuart, the library. Who earns a living by driving his customers away? A taxi driver. Colored that in. Some mad coloring skills right there, boy. Anyway. Why is an elevator operator so happy? Because his job gives him a lift. Just want to make sure. Why are garbage collectors so unhappy? Because they spend so much time down in the dumps. Why was the street angry? Because it had been crossed so many times. Stuart, what's as big as a skyscraper but weighs nothing at all? Margalo, a skyscraper's shadow. Stuart, where do birds invest their money? Margalo, in the stork market. A little more funny stuff. As you can see, I colored the car in red, because I actually watched the movie. How does Mrs. Little feel when it's time to do the dishes? She gets that sinking feeling. Why did George stand on his head? Because his feet were tired. What did the principal say when Stuart and George were late for school? Too little's too late. What does Stuart put on his hot dogs? Mouse turd. Who's bigger, Baby Martha or her father? Baby Martha, because she's just a little. Little. What do a baby and an old car have in common? They both have a rattle. Mr. Little, how do you make a milkshake? Mrs. Little, jump out and yell, boo! Was Stuart's trip down the drain scary? Yes, even the string was afraid. Afraid. Why was the plumber depressed? Because his career was going down the drain. Stuart, what's the longest word there is? George, I don't know. What? Stuart, smiles, because there's a mile between the first and last letter. 4 more. Will, why couldn't the elephant twins go swimming? George, because they only had one pair of trunks between them. How did Mr. Little feel when he got a big bill from the electric company? He was shocked. Why did Stuart bring his car to the soccer game? Because the coach told him to drive to the net. For the net. What's Stuart's favorite game? Hide and squeak. That's it. That's all the jokes. As you can see, I colored that in. And I colored Stuart in. So, that's all the jokes in this book. What a garbage joke book. I'm leaving.